I went on a weekend trip from Kansas City to Northwest Arkansas, and it felt like I was splurging, but it actually only cost me $100. I used to think that traveling was super expensive, but this is because I really didn't plan anything. I was just kind of winging it and then dealing with the consequences later. But today I'm going to share my exact playbook for how I keep my expenses low but not make it feel restrictive. If you're new here, my name is Alexa. I've increased my net worth by over $90,000 in the last 3 years. I moved to a new city, and I honestly cannot shut up about how budgeting is self-care. So let's get into the travel tips. Bond over a car ride, not a red eye. This all comes down to how much the flight actually costs, how much the gas costs, and how much time you actually have. I grew up in Houston. I now live in Kansas City. If I only have 3 days of vacation time, I'm not going to spend 22 hours driving from Missouri to Houston. That makes no sense. I will always take the flight if I only have that amount of time. But this weekend, going to Northwest Arkansas, the trip was 3.5 hours tops, and flying would have been ridiculous. I didn't even look at the prices because it was just out of the cards for me. I only spent $60 on gas. That was pretty good. It's only like 2 tanks to get from here to there and then there and back. And my boyfriend and I went together, so we were able to like sing as loudly as we wanted to, just kind of random topics you probably wouldn't want to talk about in the airport. But we got to like bond a little bit more over the car ride. We've been dating for a while. I just feel like uninterrupted time together alone in the car is really good for bonding. If we were going to take a flight, it would have been right in the morning, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. kind of flight, and then we would not have been talking to each other because we would have been so tired. And honestly, the time that it would take to get to the airport, get through security, get on the plane, get off the plane, get out of the airport, and get into a rental car, longer than it took for us to drive there. So I took my dog on this trip. So if you take a dog on a trip, at least through Southwest, it's $120 each way. So that's $240 just to take a pet. And then to make things even cheaper, sometimes when you're on a road trip, I feel like you stop at the gas station and you just want to pick up everything that you see that looks good, even if it's a 3-hour car ride. The night before, we went to Trader Joe's and picked up some snacks and then made breakfast before we left. Driving was definitely the move, and it beat the $300 cheap flight, Uber's rental car, the whole shebang. Pay with your points, not your paycheck. If you can use your credit cards like a debit card, you get points back. And you don't just have to use that for flights, you can also use that for hotel points. That's exactly what I did in this situation. I have 3 Chase credit cards, and then I have 1 Capital One card. The Capital One card, now it's my miles card, and then my Chase stuff, I really want to start switching that towards using it for hotels. Chase has a lot of partners. One of their partners is Hyatt. I looked up the prices of booking the same Hyatt in the same location, same room, same day, all of that. It was almost 10,000 points in the Chase portal. Whenever I went to the Hyatt homepage, made an account, looked at their rewards system, it was 8,000 points. In that case, because Hyatt is a partner with Chase, you can transfer your points from Chase to Hyatt directly. Instead of doing like 10,000 points, I only had to use 8,000 points. And this is embarrassing, but I actually booked the wrong day for the hotel. So when I got to the hotel, they said, ma'am, your reservation isn't for another 3 days. What are you doing here? And then I called customer service and they switched it for me. So thank you, Hyatt customer service. It was actually great. It actually ended up only being 6,500 points. So it was an even bigger cost savings than I initially thought. Because I took my dog, I did have to pay a hotel fee for that. That was $100. However, Peanut has his own sinking fund. So really he paid for that. I mean, I pay for his sinking fund, but so I took $100 out of the sinking fund to pay for the hotel fee. I do use SoFi for all of my sinking funds, and they have little buckets that you can name. You can set up recurring payments in there. It has a really high APY. If you do want to use SoFi as well, you can use the link in the description. You can get up to $300 for opening up a new checking account and savings account with them. And this isn't sponsored, I just like them. Let's stay on this mindset of we didn't use any money to pay for this trip so far. Like Peanut, I also have a sinking fund for travel. I don't like for my monthly budget to be impacted by spontaneous trips like this was, or spontaneous things that my dog needs. Let your sinking fund be your travel guide, specifically your travel sinking fund. There's 2 parts to this: money before and money during the trip. For the trip, I ask myself a series of questions. The first question I ask is, do I have the money in my travel sinking fund to go on the trip, or can I have the money by the time the trip comes around? If the answer is no, I stay home and I don't go on the trip. If the answer is yes, I move on to question 2. Do I need the money for another trip that I have planned? For example, this weekend trip that I just took. Did I need the money for a trip in 2 weeks? And was I going to deplete my savings in order to go on this trip and then be screwed on the next trip? If the answer is yes, I need the money for another trip, I stay home and I don't go on the trip. If the answer is no, then I move on to question 3. do I actually want to go on this trip? If the answer is no, I stay home and I don't go on the trip. I am too old to be going on trips that I don't want to go on and be spending money to do things I don't want to do. If the answer is yes, I send all the exclamation points in the world and say like, heck yes, I'm in, let's do the trip, let's book it right now, I want to get on this. I love traveling. I love going anywhere with people that I love, and I love exploring and seeing new things. I don't even like to go to the same restaurant twice because I just want to experience all the restaurants that there are in a city that I know that I probably am not going to live in forever. Having a sinking fund that I put money into regardless of if I have a trip planned has honestly helped me feel so free and like more spontaneous. I'm a very rigid and like planner type of person, very type A, so I feel like it's hard for me to be spontaneous. So I save money so that I can feel spontaneous and not be restricted and like, oh, I haven't thought about that trip, like I don't have the money to go. I just have money now so that whenever I want to go on a trip, I can go on a trip within reason. The second half of this tip is making sure that you set expectations for what you actually want to spend on the trip. If I have $500 in my travel sinking fund, I probably don't want to spend more than half of that on this trip if I'm going on a trip in 2 weeks, right? So you just kind of have to think through like, when do I need the money for the next trip? Do I even have that? If not, like, okay, I guess you could spend up to $500 because that's what you have in your travel sinking fund. But for me, my expectations were that I didn't want to spend more than $150 on gas and food. And like, honestly, if you only want to spend $200 on a trip, you decide you want to go on a bar crawl for 6 hours and you're buying like 2 or 3 drinks at every place, well, good luck sticking to your $200 budget for 3 days whenever you blew more than half of it in one night. So it's just like, you kind of have to be intentional with your planning. So checking with your money and setting expectations before the trip even happens is so crucial. And I do this in my budget template. I open up my travel sinking fund, see how much I have in there through SoFi, and then I open up my budget template and I put in kind of like what I expect to spend on vacation or travel, and I'll track my expenses while I am on the trip every single night, and then try to, you know, stay within the budget for the next day. Like, I'll get a cheaper meal if I went a little bit over the night before. So just kind of things like that. If you want to start tracking and use the same budget template as me, you can get that using the Stan Store link in the description box. And this might help you get ahead of like the post-trip blues of feeling guilty and feeling like, what have I done? Because you kind of planned for it and then you were keeping tabs on it and then you met your expectations and you followed through with the promise that you made to yourself that you weren't going to spend more than like $200. The last tip goes hand in hand with the one before. If you have an expected amount you want to stay under for a trip, you need to do a little bit of planning ahead of the trip so that whenever you're on it, you're not thinking too much about my under budget, my over budget, because that's honestly stressful. If you can only spend $200 for 3 days, how much of that is actually going to be your food? So you need to think about like, okay, maybe I pick a hotel that has breakfast included. So we can have breakfast at the hotel. It's always going to be free. And then for lunch, we do somewhere that's a little bit more casual. That way, like, we're only spending up to $15 on lunch. And then at dinner, it'll be a little bit more of a splurge, but I still don't want to spend more than like $40 at dinner both nights. Okay, so that's like 80 plus 30. You're now at like $120. You still have $80 left to spend for like excursions. So that means you probably can't go rock climbing for $50 on one day and then go to a concert for $40 the next day and then expect to do something the third day. You need to pack in like free or low cost gems into your itinerary to break up the bigger money spending activities. You could have a day where all you spend money on is food, and that is honestly kind of what my boyfriend and I did. Because I covered the hotel and the pet fee, my boyfriend was going to cover all of our meals, and then I was supposed to cover like extra things like coffees and maybe drinks if we got those. But honestly, he ended up paying for most of that too, so we probably spent about the same amount. I did get us like dessert and coffees one day, but he paid for most of it, I will say. My expenses should have been a little bit higher based on our deal, but he was just being nice. So I think he spent right around $150 for the trip. And because we had my dog, like, most of our experiences were outside anyways. Like, we sat on a coffee shop patio, we sat outside of a grocery store. It's called the Co-op if you're ever in Fayetteville, but it's a grocery store with like an amazing patio outside, and they have a little coffee shop brewery kind of situation happening in a corner of the grocery store. But I got an on-tap kombucha and he got an on-tap beer, and we sat outside with my dog and just like hung out for like an hour. Most of our experiences though, like I said, were outside. So there's a coffee shop, it's in Bentonville, it's called Airship, and it's on a trailhead. So you have to pick the one that looks like it's in the middle of a bunch of trees whenever you like Google map it and you see a bunch of locations. Pick the one that's at the trailhead. I think it's at Kohler Trail. It's super cool, super gorgeous. And it takes a mile to walk from the parking to the actual coffee shop. So with a dog, perfect. We're outside. That takes up a lot of time to walk a mile, get there, wait in line, get the coffee, talk and like hang around the park, you have to walk back to your car another mile. So that was like a 2-hour excursion, and it only cost the price of the coffee, which was like $6. I love doing stuff like that. I love exploring nature, going on a trail walk, finding a new park to go to. We took one of our lunches to go and literally sat on a park bench in a park and watched like Little League Baseball. That was so cute. I feel like there's a lot of things you can do for free that are memorable, they're impactful, and they don't cost that much money. You just have to do a little bit of planning and get a little bit creative. Another thing you can do is like check out a local farmer's market when you're in a new city, or you could take your pickleball paddles and then just join a little like pickleball game and ask people if you can play with them, talk to the strangers. They honestly would probably love to play with new people. Like I would. Incorporating a few of these like free activities into the bigger things make the splurges feel more special. In total, I spent just under $100. I had my hotel paid for with credit card points. I used my pet sinking fund to pay for the hotel pet fee. I used my travel sinking fund to pay for all of my expenses on the trip, and I set my expectations before the trip and stuck with tracking my expenses throughout the trip so that I could stay within the budget that I set for myself before. And I also planned to do so many free and outdoor activities in between the meals that we bought and the activities that cost some money, just to break up the day and also spread the wealth a little bit more. Doing all of these things really made me feel so relaxed during the trip because I wasn't worried about if I was spending too much when I was swiping my card. I wasn't worried about, am I over budget? Should I not like do this anymore? Feeling like I was missing out on an opportunity, or sitting there twiddling my thumbs wondering what to do next because I had all these things planned that I wanted to do. Let me know in the comments if you all have any strategies that you use whenever you're traveling so that I can implement them and save some more money and we can all help each other. But please give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing more financial topics and my journey to building wealth. And seriously, I would love to like interact with more of you guys, so please drop a comment or let me know anything else you want to see from me. But I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one.